The Millennium Dome, colloquially referred to simply as the Dome, is the original name of a large dome-shaped building, originally used to house the Millennium Experience, a major exhibition celebrating the beginning of the third millennium. Located on the Greenwich Peninsula in southeast London, England, the exhibition was open to the public from January 1 to December 31, 2000. The project and exhibition was the subject of considerable political controversy as it failed to attract the number of visitors anticipated, with recurring financial problems. All of the original exhibition and associated complex has since been demolished. The dome still exists, and it is now a key exterior feature of the O2. The Prime Meridian passes the western edge of the dome and the nearest London Underground station is North Greenwich on the Jubilee line. Construction. The dome is one of the largest of its type in the world. Externally, it appears as a large white marquee with 12 100 am high yellow support towers, one for each month of the year, or each hour of the clock face, representing the role played by Greenwich Mean Time. In plan view it is circular, 365 am in diameter. It has become one of the United Kingdom's most recognisable landmarks. It can easily be seen on aerial photographs of London. Its exterior is reminiscent of the Dome of Discovery built for the Festival of Britain in 1951. The architect was Richard Rogers and the contractor was a joint venture company, McAlpine Line joint venture formed between Sir Robert McAlpine and Line Management. The building structure was engineered by Buro Happold, and the entire roof structure weighs less than the air contained within the building. Although referred to as a dome it is not strictly one as it is not self-supporting, but is in fact a giant big top, the canopy being supported by a dome-shaped cable network, from 12 king posts. For this reason, it has been disparagingly referred to as the Millennium Tent. The canopy is made of PTFE-coated glass fiber fabric, a durable and weather-resistant plastic, and is 52 am high in the middle (1 meter) for each week of the year. Its symmetry is interrupted by a hole through which a ventilation shaft from the Blackwall Tunnel rises. As with all tent canopies, the roof has a finite, weathering, life and once this is reached the decision will need to be made either to replace it, at enormous cost, or to remove the entire structure. The critic Jonathan Meades has scathingly referred to the Millennium Dome as a museum of toxic waste, and apart from the dome itself, the project included the reclamation of the entire Greenwich Peninsula. The land was previously derelict and contaminated by toxic sludge from East Greenwich Gasworks that operated from 1889 to 1985. The clean-up operation was seen by the then Deputy Prime Minister Michael Heseltine as an investment that would add a large area of useful land to the crowded capital. This was billed as part of a larger plan to regenerate a large, sparsely populated area to the east of London and south of the River Thames, an area initially called the East Thames Corridor but latterly marketed as the Thames Gateway. Background to the Dome project. The Dome project was conceived, originally on a somewhat smaller scale, under John Major's Conservative government, as a Festival of Britain or World's Fair type showcase to celebrate the third millennium. The incoming Labour government elected in 1997 under Tony Blair greatly expanded the size, scope and funding of the project. It also significantly increased expectations of what would be delivered. Just before its opening Blair claimed the dome would be a triumph of confidence over cynicism, boldness over blandness, excellence over mediocrity. In the words of BBC correspondent Robert Orchard, the dome was to be highlighted as a glittering new Labour achievement in the next election manifesto. However, before its opening, the dome was excoriated in Ian Sinclair's diatribe, Sorry Meniscus excursions to the Millennium Dome, which accurately forecast the hype, the political posturing and the eventual disillusion. The post-exhibition plan had been to convert the dome into a football stadium which would last for 25 years. Charlton Athletic at one point considered a possible move but instead chose to redevelop their own stadium. Fisher Athletic were a local team interested in moving to the Dome, but they were considered to have too small a fan base to make this feasible. The Dome was planned to take over the functions performed by the London Arena, after its closure. This is the function which the O2 Arena has now undertaken. Millennium Experience. After a private opening on the evening of December 31, 1999, the Millennium Experience at the Dome was open to the public for the whole of 2000, and contained a large number of attractions and exhibits. The interior space was subdivided into 14 zones: Who We Are, Body, sponsored by Boots, supported by Laura, copyright Owl and Roche; Mind, sponsored by BAE Systems and Marconi; Faith comprised 5 sections: History of Christianity, Making of Key Life Experiences, How Shall I Live? Night Rain and Faith Festivals Calendar, Self-Portrait, sponsored by Marks & Spencer; Sculpture designed by Gerald Scarfe; What We Do, Work, sponsored by Manpower Incorporated; Learning, sponsored by Tesco; Rest, Play, Talk, sponsored by BT Group; Money, sponsored by the City of London; Journey, sponsored by Ford Motor Company; Where We Live, Shared Ground, was made from recycled cards, sponsored by Camelot Group plc; Living Island, Home Planet, sponsored by British Airways and BAA plc. Many of the zones were perceived as lacking in content. The Journey Zone, outlining the history and development of transport, was one of the few singled out for praise. Surrounded by the zones was a performance area in the center of the dome. With music composed by Peter Gabriel and an acrobatic cast of 160, the Millennium Dome show was performed 999 times over the course of the year. Throughout the year, the specially commissioned film Blackadder, Back and Forth was shown in Skyscape. There was also the McDonald's Our Town Story project, in which each local education authority in the UK was invited to perform a show of their devising which characterised their area and its people. As well as the above, the first ever series of Techno Games was filmed there and shown on BBC Two the same year. Other attractions: there were a number of other attractions both in and outside of the dome. Inside the dome there was a play area named Timekeepers of the Millennium, the Millennium Coin Minting Press in association with the Royal Mint, the 1951 Festival of Britain Bus, and the Millennium Star Jewels. Outside was the Millennium Map, the Childhood Cube, Looking Around, Greenwich Pavilion, the Hanging Gardens at the front of the dome, as well as a number of other installations and sculpture. Financial and management problems: the project was largely reported by the press to have been a flop, badly thought out, badly executed, and leaving the government with the embarrassing question of what to do with it afterwards. During 2000 the organisers repeatedly asked for, and received, more cash from the Millennium Commission, the lottery body which supported it. Numerous changes at management and board level, before and during the exhibition, had only limited, if any, results. Jennifer Page was sacked as chief executive of the new Millennium Experience Company just 1 month after the dome's opening. Press reports suggested that the then Prime Minister Tony Blair personally placed a high priority on making the dome a success. But part of the problem was that the financial predictions were based on an unrealistically high forecast of visitor numbers at 12 million. During the 12 months it was open there were approximately 6.5 million visitors a year, significantly fewer than the approximately 10 million paying visitors that attended the Festival of Britain, which only ran from May to September. Empire Exhibition, Scotland 1938 held in Glasgow attracted more than 12 million visitors, being open May to October. Unlike the press, visitor feedback was extremely positive. It was the most popular tourist attraction in 2000, second was the London Eye. Third was Alton Towers, which had been first in 1999. According to the UK National Audit Office, the total cost of the dome at the liquidation of the new Millennium Experience Company in 2002 was £789 million, of which £628 million was covered by national lottery grants and £189 million through sales of tickets etc. A surplus of £25 million over costs meant that the full lottery grant was not required. However, the £603 million of lottery money was still £204 million in excess of the original estimate of £399 million required, due to the shortfall in visitor numbers. The aftermath: it was, however, still of interest to the press, the government's difficulties in selling the dome being the subject of much critical comment. The amount spent on maintaining the closed building was also criticised. Shortly after it had closed, Lord Falconer reported that the dome was costing over £1 million per month to maintain. Dispersal of exhibits. Following closure of the dome, some zones were dismantled by the sponsoring organisations, but much of the content was auctioned. This included a number of artworks specially commissioned from contemporary British artists. A piece by Gavin Turk was sold for far below his then auction price, though Turk stated that he did not think the piece had worked. The Timekeepers of the Millennium attraction was acquired by the Chessington World of Adventures theme park in Surrey. A unique record of the memorabilia and paraphernalia of the Millennium Experience is held by a private collector in the United States. Many of the fixtures and fittings were also purchased by Paul Scully, chairman of Gillingham FC, for the club's stadium. Temporary reopenings. Despite the ongoing debate about the dome's future use, the dome opened again during December 2003 for the Winter Wonderland 2003 experience. The event, which featured a large funfair, ice rink, and other attractions, culminated in a laser and firework display on New Year's Eve. It also served as the venue for a number of free music festivals organised by the Mayor of London under the Respect banner. Over the 2004 Christmas period, part of the main dome was used as a shelter for the homeless and others in need, organised by the charity Crisis after superseding the London Arena, which had previously hosted the event. In 2005, when work began for the redevelopment of the dome, the London Arena hosted the event again. Redevelopment and rebranding as the O2. By late 2000, a proposal had been made for a high-tech business park to be erected under the tent area, creating an indoor city complete with streets, parks, and buildings. The business park was actually the original 1996 proposal for the site of the peninsula before the plans for the Millennium Dome were proposed. In December 2001, it was announced that Meridian Delta Limited had been chosen by the government to develop the dome as a sports and entertainment centre, and to develop housing, shops and offices on 150 acres of surrounding land. It also hoped to relocate some of London's tertiary education establishments to the site. Meridian Delta is backed by the American billionaire Philip Anschutz, who has interests in oil, railways, and telecommunications, as well as a string of sports-related investments. The dome was publicly renamed as the O2 on May 31, 2005, in a £6 million per year deal with telecommunications company O2 plc, now a subsidiary of Telefacube Technica Europe. This announcement, which presaged a major redevelopment of the site that retained little beyond the shell of the dome, gave publicity to the dome's transition into an entertainment district including an indoor arena, a music club, a cinema, an exhibition space and bars and restaurants. This redevelopment was undertaken by the dome's new owners, the Anschutz Entertainment Group, to a design by HOKSVE and Buro Happold. It cost £600 million, and the resulting venue opened to the public on June 24, 2007, with a concert by rock band Bon Jovi. During the 2012 Summer Olympics, the artistic gymnastics events, along with the medal rounds of basketball, were held at the O2. It also held wheelchair basketball events during the 2012 Summer Paralympics. For sponsorship reasons, during those times the arena was temporarily renamed the North Greenwich Arena. Effects on political careers. Issues related to the dome damaged Peter Mandelson's and John Prescott's political careers. The scheme was seen as an early example of what some saw as Tony Blair's often excessive optimism, who stated at the dome's opening, "In the dome we have a creation that, I believe, will truly be a beacon to the world." The fact that Mandelson's grandfather was Herbert Morrison, who as a minister had been involved with the Festival of Britain, often was drawn on for negative comparisons. Chronology of the project. 1994, Millennium Commission established by Prime Minister John Major and handed over to Deputy Prime Minister Michael Heseltine. March 1, 1995, Chief Executive Jenny Page appointed. June 19, 1996, Greenwich Peninsula site selected over Birmingham by the Millennium Commission. The Birmingham NEC, Pride Park in Derby and Bromley by Bow in East London were the other locations on the final shortlist. December 1996, government decides to support the project with public money after being unable to raise private capital. June 19, 1997, new Prime Minister Tony Blair visits Greenwich to announce that the Millennium Dome has been saved. The decision was taken only after a difficult cabinet debate which lasted for more than an hour. June 20, 1997, Tony Blair appointed Peter Mandelson to the role of Minister for the Millennium after his announcement that the beleaguered £580 million dome would go ahead. January 10, 1998, creative director Stephen Bailey quits the project. He is said to have been at loggerheads with Peter Mandelson as to who was in charge with the project. December 23, 1998, Peter Mandelson resigns from government after a financial scandal. January 4, 1999, Lord Falconer of Thoroton replaces Mandelson. May 1999, the Jubilee Line extension opens, putting the dome on the London Underground. This too is seen as disorderly, opening 14 months late and with station facilities not yet complete. June 22, 1999, structure of dome completed. December 31, 1999, the BBC balloon was flying during 2000 today and used throughout 2000. December 31, 1999 and January 1, 2000, VIP guests are kept waiting outside for hours because of a ticketing problem. January 1, 2000, dome structure opens to public as the Millennium Dome containing an exhibition to celebrate the third millennium. February 5, 2000, Chief Executive Jenny Page sacked. July 26, 2000, Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee publishes adverse report on dome's management. November 7, 2000, thieves break into the Diamond exhibit during opening hours but are foiled by waiting police. 4 men were jailed for the attempted robbery on February 18, 2002. November 9, 2000, National Audit Office publishes report blaming unrealistic attendance targets for the dome's financial problems. November 14, 2000, Michael Heseltine, the dome's original political supporter, states I have seen the inside story, and of course, with hindsight, all of us would do it differently. December 31, 2000, dome closed to the public, having attracted just over 6 million visitors. The initial projected figure was 12 million. February 27, 2001 a March 2, 2001, One Amazing Auction Sale, 4-day public auction with 17,000 lots of Dome NMEC items, managed by auctioneer Henry Butcher, December 18, 2001, announcement of sale of site to Meridian Delta Limited, who plan to turn it into a 20,000-seat sports and entertainment venue. Houses and offices will be built on the surrounding land, subject to the consent of the London Borough of Greenwich, December 6, 2003, opening of Winter Wonderland 2003. May 25, 2005, Anschutz Entertainment Group sells the naming rights to the former Millennium Dome to O2 plc, a British mobile phone company. In popular culture, during the political controversy surrounding the dome in 1996, Wonderbra ran an advertising campaign with the slogan "Not all domes lack public support." On Channel 4's The Big Breakfast they had the Millennium Dome Watch, in which the same clip of the dome was used with a boat and bird going past. This was to parody the inaction over its construction. On April 1, 1998, the program ran an April Fool's Day joke in the Dome Watch slot which showed the dome's tented roof on fire. Within the foundations of the dome in 1998, a time capsule was buried by Katie Hill and Richard Bacon, two of the then-current presenters of the long-running BBC children's programme Blue Peter. The capsule is due to be opened in 2050. The dome was featured in the pre-title sequence of the 1999 James Bond film The World Is Not Enough, culminating in Bond rolling down the roof of the dome. The song Silvertown Blues from Mark Knopfler's album Sailing to Philadelphia deals with the construction of the dome. Since its construction in 1999, it has been a prominent feature in the title sequence of the popular soap opera EastEnders, having been built in that area of London. During a climactic scene in October 1999, involving an argument and fight between Grant and Phil Mitchell, the dome was a part of the background as the scene took place directly on the opposite side of the river. A running joke in the sitcom Goodnight Sweetheart was based on Yvonne Sparrow's involvement in the body exhibit. The Dome was the site of the first IIFA Awards, the premier award show to honor both artistic and technical excellence of professionals in Bollywood. 2 books about the attempted robbery of the De Beers diamonds from the Dome were published in 2004, Diamond Geezers The Inside Story of the Crime of the Millennium written by Chris Hollington, published by Michael O'Meara Books Limited, and Dome Raiders How Scotland Yard Foiled the Greatest Robbery of All Time written by John Shatford and William Doyle, published by Virgin Books. The Dome was a location for the 2005 American CBS television series The Amazing Race 7, for a roadblock where the teams had to drive a double-decker bus around the car park. Gideon's Daughter is a BBC television drama written and directed by Stephen Poliakoff. Starring Bill Nighy, Miranda Richardson and Emily Blunt, it was first broadcast in the UK on BBC One on February 26, 2006. It is set against the backdrop of New Labour's rise to power, the death of Princess Diana, and the development of the Dome. Both Nighy and Blunt received Golden Globe Awards for their performances. The show won a Peabody Award in April 2007. In the 2007 Doctor Who novel Made of Steel written by Terrance Dicks, featuring the 10th Doctor, published by BBC Books, the Cybermen have made the empty dome their base. And also in the 11th Doctor novel, Borrowed Time by Naomi Alderman, the dome is featured being used as a storage facility for alien artifacts. The song Failed Olympic Bid from Future of the Left's album The Plot Against Common Sense mentions the Millennium Dome. See also, the O2, the O2 Arena, London Eye, Millennium Bridge, Tensile Architecture, references. External links, Aerial view of the Millennium Dome Bing Maps, Aerial view of the Millennium Dome Google Maps, the Millennium Dome at Stroke the Millennium Dome, a collection Dome 2000 €1 individual's collection of Millennium Dome objects, photos from Ground Up OTOMILLENNIUMDOME.co.uk a early website devoted to the Millennium Dome with pictures from ground excavation through the build, Greenwicham MEX the Dome the O2 ongoing site that documents the run-up to the MEX and, now, to the O2, the Millennium Dome. London Paul's Panoramas a panoramic view of the Dome interior during the 2000 exhibition.